Every December, Trevor and Jess decorate their house for Christmas, and their daughter Maddie proudly places the star on top of the tree. But as Maddie grows older, she slowly loses interest in the tradition. 1 year after the couple divorces, Trevor is living alone in Hertfordshire. His life is modest, his electricity runs on coins, but he still tries to keep the Christmas spirit alive. He eats chocolate from an advent calendar and even decorates his tree using a candy wrapper. When Jess calls, Trevor has to step outside into the freezing cold just to get proper phone reception. Excited, he tells her he's looking forward to having his family over for the holidays. However, Jess interrupts him with unexpected news. Her new boyfriend owns a villa in Barbados, and she plans to spend Christmas there with Maddie. She also mentions that her boyfriend has offered to pay for Maddie's college tuition. Trevor quickly says that won't be necessary, claiming he can afford it himself, hiding the truth that he is drowning in debt. Heartbroken, Trevor turns off the lights on his Christmas tree. At the local school, he helps organize the Christmas celebration. The principal later calls him into her office for a final toast, reminding him that it's his last day at work. When she asks if he has another job lined up, Trevor admits that he doesn't. Soon after, the doorbell rings, and Trevor rushes to answer it, only to find a baby left in a basket. Confused, he shows the baby to a teacher, who explains that one of the mothers agreed to let her child be used in the nativity play. Trevor places the baby in the manger, and the event finally begins. During the play, Trevor manages the music and sound effects while constantly checking his phone. He then receives shocking news that Maddie's college fees will be extremely high. At the same time, a house-sitting company Trevor once worked for calls him with a job offer. As he pulls a rope to lift the star on stage, Trevor tries to explain that he no longer works as a house sitter. When the employee mentions the salary, Trevor is so stunned by the huge amount that he accidentally lets go of the rope. The star crashes down onto the stage, frightening the children. Suddenly, Trevor is very interested in the job, but there's a catch. He has to be in London by 5 p.m. for the interview. After the event ends, Trevor switches off all the lights and leaves the school. However, he quickly returns when he hears a baby crying. The baby is still on the stage, so Trevor picks him up and goes to the principal's office to look for the parents' contact information. He tries calling them, but no one answers. Running out of time and desperate to catch the train to London, Trevor decides to go directly to the parents' house. To his shock, the mother already has her baby with her. She explains that she couldn't attend the play because the child was sick. This means the baby left in the basket at school was completely abandoned. Trevor immediately calls the principal for help, but she's already left town and tells him to handle it himself. He then contacts the police, but they say an officer won't arrive for another 3 to 4 hours. With no time to spare, Trevor calls social services and finally reaches someone who agrees to come and take the baby. While waiting, Trevor hurriedly packs his bag. When he turns around, the baby has disappeared. Panicking, he searches the house and catches the child just before he crawls down the stairs. Moments later, the social services agent arrives. But just as Trevor is about to hand over the baby, he realizes the basket is empty again. Trevor frantically searches the house, calling the baby Jesus. Hearing this, the agent assumes Trevor is unstable. He leaves his business card on the table and tells Trevor to call him if he actually finds a baby, then drives away. Eventually, Trevor discovers the baby hiding under the Christmas tree table. He rushes outside to return the child, but the agent is already driving off. Trevor tries calling him, but the agent refuses to answer. Trevor decides to take the baby to the social services office, only to discover that it's already closed. He then tries calling the police station, but the signal is terrible and his phone battery dies. With no other option left, Trevor is forced to take the baby with him to London. After a long train ride, they arrive at an extremely luxurious building. Trevor carefully makes sure the baby isn't visible on the security camera when he rings the bell. While waiting in the lobby, he hides the baby inside his backpack until Petra arrives to greet him. Trying not to reveal the child, Trevor awkwardly steps into the elevator, keeping the baby's face hidden. Petra introduces herself and shows Trevor a special fob used to access the apartment and the penthouse. During the elevator ride, the baby starts making soft noises, and Trevor pretends they're coming from him. Once they reach the penthouse, Trevor is amazed by how beautiful and massive it is. The baby keeps making sounds, so Trevor rocks his body to calm him. This only causes the baby to fart, and Trevor quickly pretends it was him again. Petra asks him to put his bag down, so Trevor walks backward and places it near the entrance. She then gives him a tour of the penthouse, which seems to have endless rooms. While they're gone, the baby manages to push the bag over and crawl out. When they return, Trevor notices the baby's bottle rolling across the floor. Petra starts explaining the house rules, especially that Trevor is not allowed to bring any guests. Meanwhile, the baby crawls behind her, but luckily disappears before she turns around. As the tour continues, Trevor hides the baby's bottle inside a vase, pretending he's admiring the artwork. When he finally spots the baby again, he quickly hides him inside a trash bin just before Petra notices. Trevor asks when he'll find out if he got the job, and Petra casually tells him that it actually started 15 minutes ago. She leaves him her card and the fob, warning him not to lose it since there are no replacements. With the staff away on holiday, no one else should be coming by. After Petra leaves, Trevor charges his phone and discovers a strange remote control. When he presses a button, a statue on the balcony suddenly moves. At that moment, the baby makes noise again, reminding Trevor of his presence. He pulls the baby out briefly, but when his phone rings, he hides him back in a kennel and gives him a kitchen timer to play with. The call is from a police officer, who says he's finally ready to collect the baby. However, since Trevor is now in London, he needs to contact the local police instead. The officer agrees to pass the information along. Trevor then checks on the baby and realizes he needs a diaper change. Unable to find supplies, he uses an expensive shawl as a makeshift diaper, securing it with office clips. He even gives the baby a bath and throws the dirty shawl into a plastic bag, leaving it on the balcony. Later, Trevor retrieves the bottle from the vase to feed the baby, but the milk runs out quickly. He takes the baby to the supermarket to buy more milk and baby food. To choose the right food, he weighs the baby using the store's produce scale. On the way out, Trevor realizes he can't carry everything and ends up pushing the shopping cart instead. Outside, Trevor receives a call from Georgia, a social services worker in London. The police have informed her about the situation, and she promises to pick up the baby the next afternoon. After dinner, the baby poops again, forcing Trevor to use even more shawls as diapers. When it's finally time to sleep, Trevor places the baby in a basket, but in the middle of the night, the baby wakes up crying. Trevor desperately tries everything to calm him down, singing, rocking, and even jumping on the bed. Nothing Trevor tries works at first. Eventually, the baby lets out a big burp, which finally calms him down. Trevor places him back in the basket, but the baby immediately starts crying again. Desperate, Trevor searches the apartment and finds a bottle of champagne. He opens it and hands the cork to the baby to suck on, which surprisingly puts him straight to sleep. The next morning, Trevor wakes up when the baby spits out the cork and starts crying again. It's time for another diaper change, but there's only one shawl left. Trevor orders diapers online and throws all the dirty shawls onto the balcony. He then tries to enjoy a peaceful breakfast, but the kitchen timer suddenly goes off. Rushing upstairs, he finds the baby attempting to climb the stairs when the delivery driver arrives. Trevor leaves the baby on the floor and runs to the intercom, but he has no idea which button to press. The delivery driver leaves, forcing Trevor to sprint outside and stop him just in time to collect the package. On the way back, Trevor realizes in horror that he left the fob inside the penthouse. As the baby starts crawling up the stairs again, Trevor remembers that the cleaner also has a fob. He searches the reception desk for a contact list, but then realizes his phone is still upstairs too. At that moment, a tenant named Lionel enters the building, and Trevor borrows his phone to call the cleaner, Elsa. Elsa agrees to bring the fob, but says she needs to call Petra first and promises to get back to him. While waiting, Trevor follows Lionel to his apartment and awkwardly ends up joining his family for lunch. Meanwhile, Georgia from social services arrives at the building, but no one answers the door. She leaves a voicemail on Trevor's phone, warning that if he doesn't respond, she'll have to involve the police. Lionel's family later receives a cheerful video call from his daughter, but the moment is interrupted by Elsa's call. Trevor quickly grabs the phone and learns that Elsa will arrive with the fob in 30 minutes. As the baby finally reaches the top of the stairs, Trevor meets Elsa in the lobby. She activates the elevator and leaves. Just as Trevor is about to go up, he realizes he left the diapers at reception. He jams his shoe between the elevator doors to keep them open, but the doors slowly push it aside and close anyway. While the baby explores the apartment and discovers the laundry chute, Trevor runs into the street and finds Elsa sitting at a cafe. At the same time, another tenant enters the elevator with a dog, and the dog steals Trevor's shoe. Elsa agrees to help again, and Trevor finally returns to the penthouse, only to realize the baby is missing. Following the sound of laughter, Trevor rushes into the laundry room and catches the baby just as he slides out of the chute. Later that night, Trevor leaves Georgia a voicemail explaining everything that's happened. Soon after, Maddie calls Trevor and reveals that she's in London because her flight was canceled due to bad weather. She admits she doesn't want to go to Barbados and wants to spend Christmas with her father instead. Before they can talk more, an announcement for the Barbados flight interrupts the call, and Maddie hangs up in the middle of the night. Trevor hears the elevator and someone entering the penthouse. Investigating, he discovers a young couple with a baby stealing food. They beg him not to call the police and explain they found a fob in the basement, where they've been secretly living after being evicted and falling into debt. Feeling sympathy for them, Trevor gives them baby food and lets them go. The next morning, Trevor wakes up once again when the baby spits out the cork and cries. Georgia calls to confirm she'll arrive around midday. Since they still have some time, Trevor decides to take the baby out for a walk, using a plastic bag to cover his shoeless foot and a shopping cart as a makeshift stroller. At the park, Several mothers compliment the baby and ask Trevor his name. Without thinking, Trevor says the baby is called Jesus. Suddenly, Trevor's missing shoe drops right in the middle of the park. He quickly picks it up and tries to put it on, but the dog runs over to steal it again. Trevor throws a stick to distract the dog and manages to slip the shoe on. However, the dog returns and starts biting his foot. In panic, Trevor throws his other shoe, and the dog happily runs away with it. Only then does Trevor realize what he's done. Later, the young couple visits Trevor to thank him for his kindness. They bring a baby hat as a gift and explain they're heading to the housing department hoping to secure a home before the holidays. Trevor offers to watch their baby while they deal with the paperwork. After feeding both babies, Trevor puts them to sleep in separate baskets. When Georgia from social services finally arrives, Trevor rushes down to the lobby with a basket and signs the paperwork while she takes a photo for official records. Trevor asks her to keep him updated, but she explains that since the baby isn't his, all future information will be confidential. Once Georgia leaves, the couple returns. Trevor brings them upstairs, but they're horrified to realize the baby in the apartment isn't theirs. Trevor suddenly understands. He gave Georgia the wrong baby. He races outside and finds Georgia arguing with the police over a parking ticket. While she's distracted, Trevor quickly takes the baby from her car and runs back inside. In the elevator, Trevor accidentally drops the fob down the shaft, but luckily he still has the spare one he borrowed from the couple. Back in the apartment, he swaps the babies and rushes outside again. Georgia's already gone, so Trevor leaves her a voicemail explaining everything. Moments later, Trevor gets a call from Petra, who informs him that the penthouse owners have changed their plans and will now be spending Christmas there. Trevor must stay until the housekeeper arrives to take over, but Petra assures him he'll still be paid. Soon after, the housekeeper Janet calls and explains she's stuck in Scotland and will arrive late at night due to bad weather. She tells Trevor to do the grocery shopping using the credit card in the kitchen drawer and sends a massive shopping list straight to the printer. Trevor ends up buying so much that he needs 4 shopping carts to bring everything home. Meanwhile, Georgia realizes the baby isn't in her car and alerts the police, triggering an emergency search. After unloading the groceries, Trevor brings some supplies to the couple secretly living in the basement as an apology for the mix-up. In the lobby, the dog walker retrieves a tenant's package, and Trevor's shoe gets dropped at reception. As Trevor leaves the basement, he spots the shoe and grabs it, causing the dog to chase him straight into the elevator. Back in the penthouse, Trevor hears a baby crying and grabs the basket before returning to the lobby to get rid of the dog. But the walker is already gone, so Trevor leaves a note in the elevator explaining where the dog is and returns upstairs with both the baby and the dog. The moment the dog sees the groceries, it steals a sausage. Trevor tries to distract it with his shoe keychain, but the dog bites it, accidentally swallowing the fob. Panicking, Trevor rushes to the elevator and confirms that the fob still works, even from inside the dog's stomach. Janet calls again, saying the bad weather will delay her arrival until the middle of the night. She tells Trevor where the decorations are and asks him to start setting them up, adding that a Christmas tree will be delivered later. While Trevor is distracted, the dog eats half of the sausage. His phone rings again. This time it's Annabelle, the dog's owner. Since Trevor still needs the key fob, he lies and says he isn't home right now, promising to call her back later. After that, Trevor goes out shopping with the baby and the dog to buy more sausage. On the way back, he notices Lionel moving out after being expelled from the building. Back in the apartment, Trevor realizes the Christmas tree has already been delivered. With no stand for it, he removes the base from a moving statue and uses it for the tree, lifting it with the help of the magical moving lights. He hides the statue in the housekeeper's office and decorates the tree using the moving base. Suddenly, the dog starts whining because he needs to poop, so Trevor takes him outside. While picking it up with a doggy bag, he touches the poop and confirms that the missing fob is inside. On their way back up, they run into Annabelle in the elevator. Trevor hands over the dog and awkwardly uses the doggy bag to press the elevator buttons right in front of her. The next morning, Trevor gets a call from Janet, who explains she had to leave Scotland because all transportation has been canceled. This means Trevor now has to cook the entire Christmas feast himself, so Janet sends all the instructions to the printer. Trevor spends hours cooking while the baby watches from inside a pot. He prepares a massive feast, sets the table, and even arranges the nativity scene. At 5 o'clock, Trevor hides the baby upstairs and waits for the owners to arrive, but no one shows up. He calls Petra and pretends he's been helping Janet, asking for an update. Petra apologizes and admits she forgot to tell them that the owners canceled their visit and went to New York instead. Just then, a police officer rings the doorbell asking about the baby. After Trevor explains everything, the officer gets confused and calls Georgia. While waiting, Trevor invites him upstairs. The cop becomes even more uncomfortable when he sees Trevor using the poop bag on the elevator buttons and later storing it in a drawer. Soon, a couple arrives to visit Trevor and brings a gift for the baby, and Trevor invites them to stay. The doorbell rings again. It's Lionel, returning his apartment keys. Since there's so much food, Trevor invites him to join as well. The crazy dog runs out. Annabelle chases after him, and she ends up staying too. As everyone settles in, Trevor gets a call from Jess, who reveals that she and Maddie never left London because all flights were canceled. They want to spend Christmas with him, so Trevor invites them to the penthouse. When Georgia finally arrives to collect the baby, she also joins the celebration. Everyone enjoys singing, drinking, and eating the delicious food together. Trevor even gives his other shoe to the dog so it can have the full pair. During a toast, the police officer dedicates it to Trevor and the baby, but when they turn around, the baby is missing. They panic and search everywhere, only to find the baby sitting peacefully in the manger. Suddenly, the doorbell rings again. Trevor checks the camera and realizes the penthouse owners have decided to return to London after all.